The cave explorer's headlamp cuts through 40 years of darkness, illuminating yellowed sheet music scattered across human remains. Ave Maria in B-flat major, the same arrangement the St. Catherine's Youth Choir was rehearsing the day they vanished without a trace point 3 days earlier. Sarah Chun adjusts her rearview mirror for the third time in 10 minutes, watching the chartered bus behind her grow smaller in the mountain curves. Inside that bus, 32 teenagers laugh and sing, their voices carrying faintly through her rolled-down windows despite the October chill. As the choir's director, she should be riding with them, but the last-minute decision to drive separately seemed practical. Someone needed to transport the costumes and spare instruments. Now, threading through the Cascade Mountains toward their weekend retreat, Sarah wishes she'd stayed with her students. Her phone buzzes against the dashboard. A text from Marcus Webb, the bus driver. Kids are getting restless. How much further? Sarah glances at her GPS, 15 miles to Pine Ridge Camp. She types back quickly, almost there. Keep them singing. The road narrows as it climbs, flanked by towering Douglas firs that seem to lean inward, creating a tunnel of green-black shadows. Sarah's sedan handles the curves easily, but she knows Marcus is struggling with the larger vehicle. The man's been driving school buses for 20 years. But mountain roads make everyone nervous. Her phone rings. Miss Chun. The voice belongs to Emma Rodriguez, her star soprano. We can't see your car anymore. I'm just ahead, honey. Are you all buckled in? Yeah, but Caleb's being weird. He keeps staring out the back window, saying someone's following us. Sarah checks her mirrors. Nothing but empty asphalt and pine trees. Tell Caleb his imagination's running wild. We'll be at camp in 20 minutes. Okay, but the line goes dead. Sarah tries calling back. No signal. She's not surprised, Cell. Coverage gets spotty this high up. Still, something cold settles in her stomach as she rounds another bend and realizes she can no longer hear the bus engine behind her. She pulls over at a scenic overlook, gravel crunching under her tires. The silence is complete except for wind. Through the trees. No bus. No distant voices. Just the vast emptiness of the mountain wilderness stretching below. Sarah's hands shake as she puts the car in reverse. The road behind her is empty, but there's a dirt track branching off about a quarter-mile back, barely visible, the kind of logging road that appears on no GPS. She must have missed Marcus taking that turn, but why would he turn? They'd driven this route together just last month during their site visit. The dirt road drops steeply through dense timber, Sarah's sedan scraping bottom on the occasional rock. Her headlights sweep across rutted earth and overhanging branches that scrape her windshield like skeletal fingers. After 10 minutes of careful navigation, the track ends at a small clearing. Empty. Sarah kills the engine and steps out the mountain, air sharp in her lungs. Hello, she calls. Her voice echoes back from the surrounding trees. Marcus? Emma? Anyone? Nothing. She tries her phone again. Still no signal. The rational part of her mind insists there's an explanation. Maybe Marcus took a different route. Maybe they're already at camp wondering where she is. But standing in this isolated clearing as darkness gathers, rational thought feels as distant as the bus itself that a twig snaps in the forest behind her. Sarah spins around, heart hammering. Who's there? The silence stretches until she begins to doubt she heard anything at all. Then, from somewhere in the darkness beyond her headlight beams, comes a sound that makes her blood freeze. Singing, faint but unmistakable, 32 young voices rising in perfect harmony. They're performing Ave Maria, the piece they'd been rehearsing for months, the song that would be their centerpiece at the regional competition. But there's something wrong with it, something hollow and distant, as if the voices are coming from underground or from somewhere much deeper than any earthly stage. Sarah takes a step toward the sound, then stops. Every instinct screams at her to run, to get back in her car and drive straight to the nearest sheriff's station. But those are her students out there, her kids. Whatever's happening, she can't abandon them. She grabs a flashlight from her glove compartment and plunges into the woods, following the ethereal chorus deeper into the mountain's heart. The singing grows stronger with each step, drawing her forward. Like a siren's call. Behind her, the clearing disappears into darkness. Ahead, the melody continues, beautiful and terrible and impossibly out of place in this wilderness. Sarah doesn't know she's walking toward a mystery that will consume the next 4 decades of her life. She doesn't know that 40 years from now, a cave explorer will find what remains of her choir scattered across limestone floors, their final performance literally written in their bones. All she knows is that somewhere in these mountains, 32 teenagers are singing, and she has to find them. Even if it kills her, the singing stops. Sarah freezes mid-step, her flashlight beam wavering across moss-covered rocks and fallen logs. The sudden silence feels heavier than the music, pressing against her eardrums like deep water. She strains to hear any sound, a cough, a whisper, even the rustle of 32 teenagers trying to stay quiet. Nothing. Emma, she calls softly. Marcus? I know you're out there. Her voice seems to die just beyond the flashlight's reach, swallowed by the dense forest. Sarah pushes forward, sweeping the beam back and forth. The terrain grows rockier as she climbs, loose stones shifting. Under her feet, ancient trees tower overhead, their branches so thick they block out the stars. After 20 minutes of searching, she finds the first sign. A torn piece of red fabric hangs from a low branch, fluttering in the breeze like a small flag. Sarah recognizes it immediately, part of the matching red scarves she'd ordered for the choir's performance uniforms. Emma had been wearing hers on the bust as Sarah's heart rate spikes. She examines the ground around the branch, looking for footprints or any indication of which direction they went. The forest floor is too thick with pine needles and fallen leaves to show clear tracks, but she notices something else: broken branches, disturbed undergrowth, a faint path leading deeper into the mountains. But it's not the kind of path people make by choice. The damage to the vegetation suggests panic, speed, desperation. Like someone, or several someones, crashed through here in the dark. Sarah follows the trail, her flashlight picking out more evidence. Another scrap of fabric, this one blue, from Tommy Martinez's jacket. A small pile of sheet music, the pages, scattered and torn. And something that makes her stomach clench: fresh scratches on a tree trunk, about head high, too deliberate to be accidental, like claw marks. Or the desperate scraping of fingers. The trail leads to a rocky outcropping that rises from the forest floor like a stone monument. Sarah circles it, looking for a way up or around, when her flashlight beam catches something that shouldn't be there: an opening in the rock face. A cave entrance, partially hidden by hanging vines and overgrown shrubs. The opening is large enough for a person to enter, but narrow enough that it would be easy to miss in daylight. In the darkness, it's nearly invisible. Sarah approaches cautiously. The air flowing from the cave mouth is noticeably cooler, carrying a mineral scent that reminds her of deep water and ancient stone. She calls into the opening. Hello? Is anyone in there? Her voice echoes back, distorted, multiplied by unseen chambers and passages. Then, impossibly, she hears it again. The singing, fainter now, but unmistakably her choir. The same arrangement of Ave Maria, but something about the acoustics makes it sound otherworldly. The cave is amplifying and transforming their voices, creating harmonics that seem to come from the stone itself. Sarah doesn't hesitate. Her students are in there, probably lost and scared. She pushes through the vines and steps into the cave. The temperature drops immediately. Her breath forms small clouds in the flashlight beam as she moves deeper into the passage. The walls are smooth limestone, carved by centuries of water flow into organic curves and strange formations. The singing seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, echoing off the rock in ways that make it impossible to determine direction. The passage branches. Sarah stops, indecisive. To her left, the tunnel slopes downward into darkness. To her right, it climbs steeply upward. Both paths carry the faint sound of voices. She chooses left, following the downward slope. The passage widens gradually, opening into a larger chamber. Sarah's flashlight beam can't find the far walls or ceiling. The singing is stronger here, more defined, and she can almost make out individual voices within the chorus. Then her light finds the first body. Marcus Webb lies crumpled against the far wall, his bus driver's uniform torn and stained. His eyes are closed, but his chest rises and falls in shallow breaths. Sarah rushes to his side, kneeling beside him. Marcus? Marcus, can you hear me? His eyes flutter open, unfocused and filled with terror. When he sees Sarah, he grabs her arm with surprising strength. Don't, don't let them sing. He whispers, his voice hoarse. Once they start, you can't stop them. What happened? Where are the kids? Marcus tries to sit up, winces, falls back. The bus. We were following you, then we weren't. Road just changed. Let us hear. The kids got out to look around, and he shudders. They heard something. Something that sounded like music. They're singing now. I can hear them. No. Marcus grips her arm tighter. That's not them singing. That's what made them sing. Before Sarah can ask what he means, the chorus swells. The Ave Maria reaches its crescendo, 32 young voices blending in perfect, impossible harmony. The sound fills the cavern, reverberating off the walls until it seems to come from the stone itself. And in that moment, Sarah understands Marcus's terror. Because she recognizes something in the music now, something that wasn't there during their rehearsals. The voices carry an otherworldly quality, as if they're being guided by something that understands music in ways human beings never could. The singing stops abruptly, leaving only the sound of dripping water and Marcus's labored breathing. Then, from deeper in the cave system, comes a new sound. Footsteps, multiple sets, moving in perfect unison, approaching their chamber. Sarah kills her flashlight, eye in the absolute darkness. The footsteps sound like a funeral march. Sarah crouches beside Marcus, her hand over his mouth to muffle his breathing. The footsteps are rhythmic, measured, as if the walkers are moving to music only they can hear. 32 sets of feet, she counts, one for each missing student. The sound grows closer. Sarah can hear other things now. The whisper of fabric against stone, the soft exhalation of synchronized breathing, and something else that makes her skin crawl. A low humming, barely audible, like a tuning fork struck against bone. The procession passes their chamber without stopping. Sarah waits until the footsteps fade before switching her flashlight back on. Marcus's face is gray with pain and fear. We have to get out of here, she whispers. Can't leave them. Marcus croaks. They're just kids. We'll get help. Come back with search and rescue. But even as she says it, Sarah knows it's not that simple. The cave entrance they used, was it even the same one the students entered? The forest path that led her here seemed to shift and change as she followed it, as if the mountain itself was guiding her movements. Marcus struggles to his feet, leaning heavily on Sarah's shoulder. They make their way back through the passage. But something's wrong. The route she took to reach the chamber should lead back to the entrance, but instead they find themselves in a different tunnel entirely. The walls here are covered in strange markings. Not quite writing, not quite art, but something that suggests both. This isn't the way we came, Sarah says. Marcus examines the markings with his own small flashlight. These look old, really old. Some of the symbols are carved deep into the stone, while others appear to be painted in a dark substance that flakes away at the touch. There are patterns that might be musical notation, but written in no system Sarah recognizes. Other markings look almost like maps or diagrams, showing branching passages that could represent the cave system itself. Look at this. Marcus points to a section of wall where the carvings are more elaborate. Does this look like sheet music? Sarah finishes. But not like any I've ever seen. The notation is complex, alien, with symbols that seem to shift and change when viewed directly. Looking at it makes Sarah's head ache, as if her brain is trying to process something it wasn't designed to understand. But there's something familiar about the underlying structure, a pattern that reminds her of Ave Maria, she breathes. This is Ave Maria, but different, like it's been translated into another language. The humming sound returns, emanating from the walls themselves. The strange musical notation seems to pulse with the rhythm, symbols brightening and dimming as if lit from within. Sarah realizes the cave isn't just amplifying the students' voices, it's teaching them something. Changing their music into something else entirely. A scream echoes from somewhere deeper in the cave system. High-pitched, terrified, unmistakably human. One of her students, Sarah, starts toward the sound, but Marcus grabs her arm. That's what it wants, he says. It's calling to you. That's Emma. I know her voice. It's not Emma anymore. Before Sarah can argue, they hear footsteps again. But these are different from the measured procession, irregular, stumbling, as if someone is running through the darkness. The footsteps grow closer, accompanied by gasping breaths and soft whimpers. The figure stumbles into their tunnel, illuminated by Sarah's flashlight beam. It's Tommy Martinez, the choir's bass section leader, but he looks wrong. His red performance scarf is gone, replaced by markings on his throat that look like tattoos but seem to move in the light. His eyes are wide with terror, but there's something else there too, a terrible understanding. Miss Chun. His voice is hoarse, strained. You have to get out. You have to warn people. Tommy, thank God. Where are the others? They are there, learning the new song, the one the mountain teaches. He touches the markings on his throat, winces. I couldn't do it. Couldn't let it change me. So I ran. What song? What's happening down there? Tommy's eyes fill with tears. It's beautiful. Miss Chun, the most beautiful music you've ever heard. But it's not meant for human voices. It's older, from before people existed. And once you start singing it, he doubles over, coughing. When he straightens, Sarah sees that the markings on his throat have spread, creeping up toward his face. Like dark veins. Once you start singing it, he continues, his voice already changing, becoming more musical, less human. You can't stop. Ever. The humming grows louder. Tommy's mouth opens, and the sound that emerges is no longer entirely his own. It harmonizes with the cave's endless song, adding a new voice to the chorus. His eyes plead with Sarah even as his vocal cords betray him. Run. He manages to say before the music takes him completely. Tommy turns and walks back into the darkness, his footsteps joining the rhythm of the unseen procession. His voice blends with the others, 33 singers now instead of 32, all performing the mountain's ancient song. Sarah and Marcus stand frozen in the tunnel, listening to the chorus grow stronger. The cave walls pulse with bioluminescent patterns that match the rhythm, and Sarah realizes they're not just in a cave, they're inside something alive. Something that feeds on music, on voices, on the human need to create harmony, and it's still hungry. From the depths comes a new sound, the rumble of shifting stone. The cave is changing, passages opening and closing, ensuring that once you enter, you never leave the same way twice. Sarah grabs Marcus's hand. We're finding another way out. Now. But as they stumble through the twisted passages, following marks that seem to rearrange themselves when they're not looking directly at them, Sarah can't shake the feeling that they're not escaping it all there. Descending deeper into the mountain's heart, where 33 young voices sing an endless song that was never meant for human throats. 40 years later, Dr. Jake Morrison adjusts his helmet light and checks his gear one final time. The rope disappears into the cave entrance below, secured to anchors he placed an hour ago. His partner, Lisa Zhang, is already down there somewhere, her voice crackling through the radio with updates about the cave system they're mapping. Jake, you need to see this. Lisa's voice carries an edge of excitement. This isn't just a cave. It's massive. Like, seriously massive. Morrison clips into his descender and begins the rappel. He's been exploring caves for 15 years, mapping unmapped systems throughout the Pacific Northwest, but something about this particular site makes him uneasy. The local ranger who gave them permits mentioned that hikers sometimes report hearing music from the area, but no one's ever found the source. The descent takes longer than expected. Morrison's light reveals chamber after chamber opening off the main shaft, each one disappearing into darkness beyond his beam's reach. The limestone formations are extraordinary, flowing curtains of stone and delicate flowstone cascades that speak of thousands of years of patient waterwork. But there's something else. Markings on the walls that don't look natural. Lisa, how far down are you? About 200 feet. Jake, I'm in a chamber that has to be the size of a cathedral. And there's stuff down here. Morrison increases his descent speed. What kind of stuff? Human stuff. Old human stuff. He finds Lisa standing in the center of a vast underground chamber, her headlamp creating a small circle of light. In the overwhelming darkness, the space is so large that their lights can't reach the ceiling or far walls. But scattered across the floor around Lisa are objects that clearly don't belong in a pristine cave system. Pieces of fabric, faded and rotted with age. What looks like the remains of a backpack. And everywhere, scattered like fallen leaves, sheets of yellowed paper. Morrison kneels beside the nearest pile of papers. Sheet music, he says, his voice echoing strangely in the vast space. Looks like it's been here for decades. That's not the weird part, Lisa says. She leads him deeper into the chamber, where their combined lights reveal something that makes Morrison's breath catch: bones. Human bones, arranged in careful patterns across the cave floor. Not scattered randomly as they would be from natural death, but placed deliberately, almost ceremonially. And mixed among the bones are more sheets of music, some of them still clutched in skeletal fingers. Jesus, Morrison whispers. How many? People. Lisa's light sweeps across the chamber, revealing the scope of what they've found. I count at least 30 individual skeletons. Maybe more. They're all young, teenagers, from the size of the bones. Morrison examines the nearest skeleton. The skull shows no signs of trauma, no obvious cause of death. But there's something else, something that makes his skin crawl. The jawbone is positioned differently than it should be, as if the person died while singing. Look at this, Lisa calls from across the chamber. Her light illuminates a section of wall covered in carvings, intricate symbols and patterns that seem to flow like frozen music. These markings, they're everywhere down here, like someone was writing on the walls for a long time. Morrison joins her, studying the carvings. Some are shallow scratches, as if made with fingernails. Others are deeper, carved with tools or sharp stones. The patterns are hypnotic, seeming to move and shift when viewed peripherally. It's musical notation, he realizes, but not like anything I've seen before. Lisa points to a section where the carvings are accompanied by what look like tally marks. Someone was keeping track of something. Days, maybe? Or songs. A sound echoes through the chamber, a low, resonant note that seems to come from the stone itself. Both explorers freeze, listening. The note holds for several seconds, then fades, leaving only the drip of distant water. Cave acoustics, Morrison says, but his voice lacks conviction. Wind through the passages. Wind doesn't sound like that, Lisa replies. She's right. The sound had a musical quality, almost like a human voice sustained impossibly long. They continue their exploration, documenting the bone sites and photographing the wall carvings. Morrison finds what appears to be a bus driver's uniform, the fabric so deteriorated it crumbles at his touch. Lisa discovers a cache of personal items, wallets, jewelry, school ID cards, that tell a story of young people who entered this cave decades ago and never left. 1968, Lisa reads from a student ID card. Sarah Chun, St. Catherine's Academy. That's the year the choir disappeared, Morrison says quietly. Lisa looks up from the ID card. What choir? Local legend. A youth choir from Portland vanished during a mountain retreat in 1968. 32 kids and their bus driver. The search went on for months, but they never found a trace. Until now. Morrison nods, studying the arranged bones with new understanding. But this doesn't make sense. If they got lost in the cave, died of exposure, or whatever, why are they bones arranged like this? Why all the sheet music? The strange humming sound returns, louder this time and more complex. Multiple tones weaving together in an alien harmony that makes both explorers' teeth ache. The sound seems to activate something. In the cave walls, the carved symbols begin to glow with a faint phosphorescence, pulsing in rhythm with the music. We need to get out of here, Lisa says, backing toward their entry rope. But Morrison is transfixed by the glowing symbols. The patterns are becoming clearer now, revealing themselves as incredibly complex musical compositions. Not just notation, but something deeper, instructions for performance techniques that human voices shouldn't be able to produce. Jake. Lisa's voice is sharp with panic. The rope. Morrison turns to see Lisa standing beside their entry point, but the rope they used to descend is gone. Cut, burned, or simply vanished. There's no way to climb back to the surface. The humming grows stronger, and Morrison realizes it's not coming from the cave walls. It's coming from the bones themselves, as if the skeletal remains of the choir are still trying to sing. There has to be another way out, he says, fighting to keep his voice steady. Caves this size always have multiple entrances. But even as he says it, Morrison knows they're in trouble. The glowing symbols on the walls are growing brighter, and the bone arrangements on the floor seem to be moving, shifting into new patterns. The scattered sheet music rustles without any wind to move it. And from somewhere deeper in the cave system comes a sound that makes both explorers' blood freeze. The voices of 32 young people, singing in perfect harmony, calling them to join the eternal performance. The singing grows stronger, and Morrison realizes something that chills him to the bone. The voices are getting closer that he grabs Lisa's arm, pulling her away from the vanished rope. Move. Now. They run deeper into the chamber, their headlamps bouncing wildly as they navigate between the bone patterns. Behind them, the humming swells into full-throated song, 32 voices performing the same piece of music, but with harmonies that seem to bend space itself. Morrison's light catches a passage opening in the far wall. They dive into it just as the singing reaches a crescendo that makes the cave walls vibrate. The passage is narrow, forcing them to crawl, but it leads away from the chamber and its impossible chorus. What the hell was that? Lisa gasps as they emerge into a smaller cavern. I don't know, but we're not sticking around to find out. This new space is different from the bone chamber. The walls are smoother, almost polished, and covered in different kinds of markings. These aren't carved symbols, but something that looks almost like writing. Not in any alphabet Morrison recognizes, but clearly deliberate communication. Lisa examines the wall writings with her light. Look at this section. It's like a diary. Morrison joins her. The markings are organized in blocks, some short, others extensive. Despite the alien script, there's something familiar about the pattern, the way thoughts are organized, the rhythm of recorded experience. Someone was documenting what happened here, he says, recording their experiences. But who? The kids. From 1968. Before Morrison can answer, they hear new sounds from the passage behind them. Not singing this time, but footsteps. Multiple sets, moving with the same rhythmic precision they heard in the larger chamber. They're following us, Lisa whispers. Morrison studies the wall writings more carefully. In the middle of one section, he finds something that makes his heart race. Crude but recognizable English letters mixed in with the alien script. Words carved by someone who was losing the ability to communicate in their native language. Help us. One section reads, "Can't stop singing. Music changes you. Changes how you think." Further down, Sarah tried to find way out. Been weeks. Or months. Time different here. And near the bottom, in letters that become increasingly distorted, "We are becoming something else." The mountain teaches new songs. Beautiful songs. Songs that were never meant for human voices. Morrison. Lisa's voice is tight with fear. Look at this. She's found a section where the writing becomes increasingly erratic, the letters stretching and flowing like melted wax. But the final entry is in perfectly clear English, as if the writers suddenly regained their linguistic ability for one last message. If you find this, don't listen to the music. Don't try to learn the songs. Get out while you still remember who you are. It's signed. Tommy Martinez, bass section, St. Catherine's Youth Choir. The footsteps in the passage behind them grow louder. Morrison counts them, still 32 sets, moving in perfect unison. But there's something else now, a new rhythm underneath, as if more feet have joined the procession. The rope, Lisa says suddenly. Someone cut our rope. That means there are people up there. People who don't want us to leave. Morrison nods, grimly, which means this isn't just about what happened in 1968. It's still happening. They push deeper into the cave system, following passages that seem to branch and multiply endlessly. The walls continue to tell their story in increasingly alien script, but Morrison begins to understand the pattern. The early entries are mostly human, documenting the choir's initial terror and confusion. But as time passes, the writing changes, becoming more elaborate, more musical in its structure. They weren't just trapped in the cave. They were being transformed by it to in another chamber. They find evidence of long habitation. Crude shelters built from stone and salvaged materials. Fire pits with ancient ash. And everywhere, more sheet music. Thousands of pages covered in the same impossible notation they found in the bone chamber. They lived down here, Lisa says, examining the remains of a shelter. For years. And they kept composing. Morrison adds, studying the sheet music. Or something kept composing through them. The singing starts again, but this time it's different. Instead of the unified chorus, they hear individual voices scattered throughout the cave system. Some are performing the familiar Ave Maria, but others are singing pieces Morrison has never heard. Complex, otherworldly compositions that seem to pull at something deep in his mind. It's trying to teach us, he realizes. The music, it wants us to learn. Lisa grabs his arm. Don't listen to it. Remember what Tommy wrote. But it's too late. Morrison can feel the melodies working their way into his consciousness, revealing patterns and harmonies that human music has never explored. Part of him wants to sing along, to add his voice to the eternal performance. He shakes his head violently, trying to clear the musical thoughts. We need to find another way out. Now, they continue through the cave system, but Morrison notices that Lisa is humming softly under her breath. When he points it out, she looks genuinely surprised. I didn't realize I was doing that, she says. It's just, the music is so beautiful. Morrison feels it too, the almost irresistible urge to join the chorus. The cave isn't just a physical trap, it's a psychological one. The longer they stay, the more the music becomes part of them. They find another chamber, this one containing what looks like a crude laboratory. Stone tables covered with instruments Morrison doesn't recognize, and walls covered in diagrams that seem to map the human vocal system in impossible detail. They were experimenting, he says, trying to figure out how to make human voices produce sounds they were never designed to make. Lisa examines one of the diagrams. Look at this. It's showing modifications to the throat, the vocal cords, like surgical procedures. Morrison's light finds something that makes his stomach turn. Human skulls with holes drilled in precise locations, as if someone was trying to alter the resonance chambers of the head itself. They weren't just learning new music, he says. They were changing themselves to sing it. The footsteps behind them suddenly stop. The silence is more terrifying than the sound was. It means their pursuers have found another route, are closing in from a different direction. Then, from the passage ahead of them, comes a voice Morrison recognizes from the bone chamber. Young, female, impossibly preserved after 40 years. We've been waiting for you to join us. The performance isn't complete without everyone. Emma Rodriguez steps into their headlight beams, and Morrison's rational mind struggles to process what he's seeing. She looks exactly as she would have in 1968, 17 years old, wearing the tattered remains of a red performance scarf, her dark hair still neat despite 4 decades underground. But her throat is marked with the same flowing patterns they saw on the cave walls, and when she speaks, her voice carries harmonics that human vocal cords shouldn't be able to produce. Miss Chun is so excited to meet you, Emma says, her words seeming to come from multiple directions at once. We don't get many visitors who understand music. Lisa backs against the cave wall, her light shaking. You're dead. We saw your bones. Emma laughs, a sound like wind chimes made of crystal. Dead? We're more alive than we've ever been. We're part of something beautiful now, something eternal. She touches the markings on her throat. The mountain taught us songs that existed before humans walked the earth, songs that will exist long after the last human voice falls silent. Morrison forces himself to think rationally. You're not Emma Rodriguez. Emma died in 1968. I'm what Emma became, when she learned to sing properly. The thing wearing Emma's face steps closer. Just like you'll become something better when you join our choir. Behind them, more figures emerge from the passages. Morrison recognizes faces from the bone chamber, young people who should have been dust decades ago, but who move with fluid grace through the darkness. Their eyes reflect the headlamp beams like animals, and they all bear the same throat markings. The transformation is beautiful, says a young man Morrison assumes must be Tommy Martinez, though he looks nothing like the desperate figure who carved the warning message. At first, you resist. You think you're losing yourself. But you're not losing anything, you're gaining everything. The music shows you what you really are. Lisa tries to run, but more figures block every passage. They're surrounded by the transformed choir, 32 impossible singers who should have been dead for 40 years. Where's Sarah Chun? Morrison asks, playing for time while he looks for any escape route. Our director is preparing for your audition, Emma says. She's been working on a very special arrangement, something that will accommodate your particular vocal ranges. They're led deeper into the cave system, through passages that seem to shift and change as they walk. Morrison realizes the cave itself is alive, responding to the presence of the choir. The limestone formations pulse with bioluminescent light that matches the rhythm of the singer's breathing. The passage opens into a vast amphitheater carved from solid rock. Tiered seating rises from a central stage area, and every surface is covered in the flowing musical notation Morrison has seen throughout the cave system. But here, the symbols move, shifting and changing as if the walls themselves are composing to the center of the space stands Sarah Chun. Like her students, she appears unchanged by the decades, but the transformation has gone deeper. The musical markings cover not just her throat, but her entire visible skin, creating patterns that seem to pulse with their own rhythm. When she turns to face them, Morrison sees that her eyes have become something else entirely, not human eyes, but crystalline. Structures that reflect and refract light like living prisms. "Welcome," Sarah says, and her voice is a full orchestra compressed into human speech. "I've been preparing for this moment since the day we arrived here. The mountain told me you would come." "The mountain told you." Lisa's voice cracks with strain. "The mountain is ancient," Sarah explains, moving toward them with movements that seem choreographed to music only she can hear. "It has been singing since before continents formed, since before life crawled from the oceans. But it needed voices to complete its song. Human voices, because we're the only species that creates music for its own sake." Morrison looks around the amphitheater, seeing now that the tiered seating isn't empty. Hundreds of figures sit in the shadows, not just the St. Catherine's Choir, but others. People from different time periods, wearing clothes from different decades, all bearing the same throat markings, all watching with the same crystalline eyes. "How many?" he whispers. "We collect the musically gifted," Sarah says. "People who understand that music is more than entertainment, more than art. People who can hear the deep songs that run beneath ordinary reality." She gestures to the walls around them, where the musical notation continues to shift and flow. This is the mountain's composition. It's been writing itself for millions of years, but it needs performers to bring it to life. Each voice adds new harmonies, new possibilities. Morrison realizes what they're seeing isn't just a cave formation. It's a living musical instrument the size of a mountain, with the transformed humans as its voice box. "The process is gradual," Sarah continues. "At first, you'll sing the songs you know. But slowly, the mountain's music will blend with yours. You'll discover ranges you never knew you had, harmonies that exist in dimensions beyond normal human perception." Emma and the other choir members begin to sing softly, their voices blending in ways that make the air itself seem to vibrate. The sound is beautiful beyond description, but Morrison can feel it working on his mind, trying to find purchase in his consciousness. "Don't listen," he whispers to Lisa, but she's already beginning to sway to the rhythm. "It's so beautiful," she murmurs, her voice taking on the same harmonic qualities as the singers around them. Morrison grabs her shoulders, shaking her. "Lisa, remember who you are." But even as he fights to keep Lisa focused, Morrison can feel the music affecting him too. The melodies reveal mathematical relationships he's never considered, show him how sound and stone and human consciousness can blend into something transcendent. Sarah approaches them, her crystalline eyes fixed on Morrison. "You're fighting it because you think you'll lose yourself. But you won't. You'll become more than yourself. You'll become part of something eternal." The singing grows stronger, and Morrison realizes that every voice in the amphitheater has joined the chorus. Hundreds of singers, collected over decades or perhaps centuries, all performing the mountain's endless composition. Lisa stops struggling and begins to sing along, her voice naturally finding harmonies within the complex musical structure. The throat markings appear on her skin as Morrison watches, dark lines spreading like musical tattoos that pulse with their own rhythm. "No." Morrison lunges toward the nearest passage, dragging Lisa with him. But the transformed choir moves to block his path, their song never faltering. "There's nowhere to go," Sarah says gently. "All passages lead back to the music room." The mountain ensures that its singers never leave the performance. Morrison looks around desperately and notices something the others have missed. High above them, almost invisible in the darkness, is another opening. Not a cave passage, but what looks like a natural chimney leading upward toward the surface that's impossibly high, and climbing it would require equipment they don't have. But it's the only route the choir isn't guarding. Morrison makes his choice. He pushes Lisa toward the wall beneath the chimney and begins to climb, using the flowing rock formations as handholds. The singing below them grows agitated, discordant, as if the mountain itself is disturbed by their escape attempt. You can't. Leave the song unfinished. Sarah calls after them. The composition requires your voices. But Morrison is already 20 feet up the chimney wall, Lisa climbing behind him. And for the first time since entering the cave, he can see a faint gleam of daylight far above. What he doesn't see is the way the rock formations below them are beginning to shift, reaching upward like grasping fingers. The rock face transforms beneath Morrison's hands, limestone flowing like water as the mountain tries to prevent their escape. What were solid handholds moments before become smooth, slippery surfaces that offer no purchase. It's changing, Lisa shouts from below him. The whole wall is changing. Morrison looks up toward the distant circle of daylight. Still 50 feet to go, but the chimney walls are narrowing, trying to trap them in a limestone prison. He drives his fingers into cracks that seal themselves moments later, using each hold just long enough to reach for the next. Below them, the singing reaches a new intensity. The hundreds of voices in the amphitheater are no longer performing separate harmonies. They've unified into a single, overwhelming chord that makes the entire mountain vibrate. Morrison can feel the sound in his bones, trying to pull him back, down into the depths. Morrison, Lisa's voice is strained. I can't hold on. He looks down to see her clinging to the wall 20 feet below him, but the rock around her hands is softening, trying to absorb her into its structure. The throat, markings on her skin are spreading, and when she speaks, her voice carries the same harmonic distortions as the transformed choir. Fight it, he calls to her. Remember who you are. But even as he says it, Morrison can feel the music working on his own mind. The mountain song is showing him visions of what he could become, not just a cave explorer, but something greater. A performer in an eternal concert, his voice blending with hundreds of others in harmonies that transcend human understanding. The temptation is almost overwhelming. Down in the amphitheater, he wouldn't have to struggle anymore. No more dangerous climbs, no more uncertainty. Just perfect music, forever. Morrison shakes his head violently and forces himself to climb higher. The daylight above grows stronger, but so does the mountain's resistance. The chimney walls begin to close in, trying to crush them between solid stone. Almost there, he gasps, reaching for a crack near the opening. His fingers find purchase on natural rock, limestone that hasn't been corrupted by the mountain's influence. Real stone, formed by ordinary geological processes instead of whatever alien force controls the depths below. But as he pulls himself up, Morrison hears something that stops his heart. Lisa has stopped climbing. He looks down to see her hanging motionless against the wall, her head tilted back toward the amphitheater below. She's singing now, her voice blending perfectly with the chorus rising from the depths. The throat markings have spread across her face, creating intricate patterns that pulse with bioluminescent light. Lisa, he shouts, but she doesn't respond. Her eyes have taken on the same crystalline quality as Sarah Chen's, reflecting the faint daylight in fractal patterns. Morrison makes a desperate decision. Instead of climbing toward freedom, he rappels down toward Lisa, using cracks in the limestone as anchor points. The mountain fights him every step, trying to pull him deeper into its embrace. But Morrison has spent 15 years learning to trust rock. He reaches Lisa just as her transformation accelerates. The markings are spreading down her arms now, and her singing voice is developing impossible ranges. Notes so low they're felt rather than heard. Harmonics so high they seem to come from another dimension entirely. Lisa, listen to my voice, Morrison says, grabbing her shoulders. Remember the surface. Remember sunlight. Remember why we came here. For a moment, her crystalline eyes focus on his face. Jake, she whispers, her normal voice breaking through. The harmonic distortions. I can see it all. The music, it's showing me how everything connects. Every sound that's ever been made, every song that will ever be sung. It's all part of one massive composition. That's not real, Morrison insists, though part of him wonders if she's right. That's what it wants you to think. But what if it is real? Lisa's voice wavers between human speech and something else entirely. What if this is what music was always supposed to be? What if we've been singing incomplete songs our whole lives? The chorus below them swells, and Morrison feels the mountain's influence pressing against his consciousness like a physical weight. The melodies are so beautiful, so complex, that they make ordinary human music seem like children's nursery rhymes in comparison. He understands now why no one ever leaves. It's not just that the mountain prevents escape, it's that after hearing this music, nothing else will ever be enough. Every song on the surface will sound hollow, incomplete, missing the transcendent harmonies that only the mountain can provide. But Morrison has one advantage the others didn't. He's not a musician. He doesn't have the musical knowledge that makes the mountain's songs so irresistible. Where Sarah and her students heard artistic perfection, Morrison hears something else: predation. It's not about the music, he tells Lisa urgently. It's about feeding. The mountain feeds on human voices, on our ability to create. It doesn't want to make us better, it wants to consume us. Lisa's eyes flicker between crystalline and human. But the songs are bait. Beautiful bait, but still bait. Morrison starts climbing again, half carrying Lisa with him. The mountain's resistance grows stronger with every foot they ascend, but they're close now. So close that Morrison can feel fresh air on his face, can see individual leaves moving in the wind above them. The singing below reaches a crescendo of fury. Hundreds of voices screaming in harmony, their collective rage shaking loose rocks that rain down into the chimney. Morrison shields Lisa as best he can while continuing to climb, his muscles burning with exhaustion. Then, impossibly, they break through. Morrison hauls himself over the rim of the chimney opening and collapses on solid ground under an overcast sky. Lisa emerges beside him, gasping and shaking, the throat markings on her skin already beginning to fade in the natural light. They're on a mountainside covered in Douglas firs, about a quarter-mile from where Morrison left their gear. In the distance, he can see the access road where their truck is parked. Escape is possible. What about Lisa? He asks. She saw everything I saw. Sheriff Novak's expression grows more concerned. Dr. Zhang is. She's having some difficulties. She's been admitted to Portland General for observation. Morrison's blood runs cold. What kind of difficulties? She's been singing, Dr. Morrison, constantly, for 3 days straight. Songs that, well, songs that don't seem to exist. Her doctors are calling it a form of musical hallucination, possibly brought on by psychological trauma. The room spins around Morrison. He grips the edge of the table, fighting to stay upright. You have to listen to me. There's something in that mountain, something that's been killing people for decades. We've thoroughly investigated the 1968 disappearance, Sheriff Novak says. The St. Catherine's Choir case has been reopened several times over the years. There's no evidence they ever reached the mountain area where you claim to have found them. She pulls out another file, spreading photographs across the table. Morrison recognizes them immediately: Sarah Chun, Emma Rodriguez, Tommy Martinez. All the faces he saw in the cave. But these are school photos from 1968, not the impossible preserved figures he encountered underground. The bus was found 3 days after they disappeared. Sheriff Novak continues. At the bottom of a ravine, 200 miles south of here. All 32 students and their driver died on impact. Their bodies were recovered and buried. I can show you the grave sites if you'd like. Morrison stares at the photographs, his reality fracturing. No, that's not right. We found them in the cave. They were alive, they were singing. Dr. Morrison, Sheriff Novak's voice is gentle but firm. There is no cave. Morrison staggers out of the sheriff's station into bright afternoon sunlight. His truck sits in the parking lot, exactly where he left it, but everything feels wrong. The world seems too bright, too loud, too chaotic after the perfect acoustic environment of the mountain's depths. He drives aimlessly through Portland, trying to make sense of what's happening. The lab reports, the photographs, the official records, they all contradict what he experienced. But Morrison knows what he saw. He knows what he heard. The problem is, no one else does that. He finds himself at Portland General Hospital, asking about Lisa Zhang. The nurse at the information desk confirms she's a patient but won't provide details. Morrison waits in the lobby for hours before a doctor finally agrees to speak with him. Dr. Zhang is stable, Dr. Sarah Winters explains, leading Morrison to a quiet corner of the waiting area. But she's experiencing what we're calling a severe auditory fixation. She believes she's part of some kind of choir performance that never ends. Can I see her? Dr. Winters hesitates. She's been asking for you. But I should warn you, she's not the person you knew. The episode has changed her significantly. They take an elevator to the psychiatric ward. Morrison follows Dr. Winters down a hallway lined with rooms containing people who've slipped away from consensus reality. The sound of Lisa's voice carries through. One of the doors, singing wordlessly, her voice rising and falling in complex harmonies that seem to echo off the hospital walls in impossible ways. Morrison finds her sitting by the window in a small private room, her back to the door. She's still singing, her voice producing sounds that human vocal cords shouldn't be able to make. When she turns to face him, Morrison sees that her eyes haven't returned to normal. They still carry that crystalline quality, still reflect light in fractal patterns. "Jake," she says, her speaking voice layered with harmonic undertones. "You can hear it too, can't you? The music. It never stops." Morrison sits in the chair across from her bed. "Lisa, the doctors say you've been singing for 3 days straight." "Because the song isn't finished yet," she explains, as if this should be obvious. "It won't be finished until everyone joins in. Until every voice that's meant to be part of it finds its place in the harmony." She leans forward, her crystalline eyes fixed on his face. "You left too soon, Jake. You didn't give the mountain time to teach you properly. But it's okay. The music follows you wherever you go now. Eventually, you'll understand." Morrison feels a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean, the music follows you?" Lisa smiles, and her voice takes on multiple harmonies as she speaks. "Listen." Morrison does listen, and what he hears makes his hands shake. Underneath the normal hospital sounds, ventilation systems, distant conversations, medical equipment, there's something else. A subtle rhythm, a barely audible melody that seems to connect all the random noises into a coherent musical structure. "It's everywhere," Lisa continues. "Once you know how to listen, you can hear it in everything. Traffic patterns, bird songs, the rhythm of people walking. It's all part of the same composition." Morrison backs toward the door. "Lisa, that's not real. That's what the cave did to you." "The cave didn't do anything to me," she says, still smiling that harmonic smile. "It just taught me how to hear what was always there. And soon, you'll hear it too. Really hear it. And then you'll want to come back." They all want to come back, eventually. Morrison runs from the hospital, Lisa's impossible voice following him down the corridors. But even in his truck, even driving as fast as traffic allows, he can't escape what she showed him. The underlying rhythm is there, in the engine noise, in the radio static, in the sound of wind through his partially open window. The mountain's music has followed him home, and deep in his mind, a small voice whispers that maybe, just maybe, Lisa is right. Maybe the only way to make the music stop is to go back and let it finish what it started. Morrison grips the steering wheel and drives toward the mountains, hating himself for how much he wants to hear that perfect, terrible song just one more time. 2 weeks later, Morrison stands at the edge of the forest where he and Lisa first heard the singing, a backpack full of climbing gear weighing down his shoulders. He's lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks, barely sleeping, barely eating, unable to concentrate on anything except the music that plays constantly at the edges of his consciousness. The official investigation is closed. The sheriff's department has classified his report as a stress-induced hallucination brought on by dangerous cave exploration. Lisa remains hospitalized, still singing, her voice growing stronger and more complex each day. The doctors have no explanation for her condition and no idea how to treat it. Morrison knows he should leave. He should drive back to Portland, see a psychiatrist, accept medication that might quiet the music in his head. Instead, he's returned to the mountain with enough equipment to find his way back to the cave, one way or another, because Lisa was right about one thing. The music is everywhere now. It's in the rhythm of his heartbeat, the pattern of his breathing, the way light filters through tree branches. Once you learn to hear it, you can't stop hearing it. And the only place it makes sense, the only place where all the scattered melodies come together into something coherent, is deep underground where Sarah Chun conducts her eternal choir. Morrison hikes into the forest, following the same route he took weeks ago when he was still a rational person with a rational worldview. The trees seem different now, more alive, responding to rhythms he's only beginning to understand. Birds call to each other in patterns that form musical phrases. Wind through the branches creates harmonies that would be impossible to reproduce. With conventional instruments, he finds the rocky outcropping where he and Lisa first discovered the cave entrance. The surface is completely solid, just as the search team reported, but Morrison can feel something underneath. A vibration in the stone, a subtle resonance that suggests vast, empty spaces below. Morrison sets up his drilling equipment, a compact pneumatic system designed for setting anchor bolts in solid rock. If there's a cave system below, he'll make his own entrance. The music in his head grows stronger as he works, guiding his efforts, showing him exactly where to place each hole. The drilling takes 6 hours. Morrison works with mechanical precision, following patterns that feel preordained, as if the mountain is telling him exactly how to break through its defenses. When he finally breaks through into empty space, the rush of air that emerges carries with it the faint sound of distant singing. Morrison rappels into darkness, his headlamp revealing the same limestone formations he found weeks ago. But something has changed. The cave system is larger now, more complex, as if it's been growing in his absence. The walls pulse with bioluminescent patterns that match the rhythm of the invisible music, and Morrison realizes the mountain has been waiting for him, that he follows. Passages that seem to rearrange themselves as he walks, always leading him deeper, always drawing him toward the source of the singing. The bone chamber is empty now. The remains of the 1968 choir have been moved somewhere else to serve some new purpose in the mountain's endless composition. Morrison finds them in the amphitheater, but they're no longer scattered remains. They're performing. 32 figures stand on the central stage, their forms shifting between human and something else entirely. Sometimes Morrison sees them as the young people they once were: Emma Rodriguez with her red scarf, Tommy Martinez clutching sheet music, Sarah Chun conducting with fluid gestures that seem to bend space itself. Other times they appear as something more fundamental, pure sound given physical form, music that has learned to walk and breathe and sing.